Good morning, ladies. It's Dr. Carol Lourie. Everything you need and want to know for life after breast cancer. And I'm here with my dear friend Morgan, who is a holistic sleep coach. And sleep, it's like nutrition. Sleep is the foundation of wellness. If you are having problems sleeping, and many of you do while you're put through speedy menopause of being on tamoxifen or aromatase inhibitor, it's very hard to have energy and have a positive outlook throughout the day. So Morgan is going to share her experience and lots of tips. So welcome, Morgan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Carol. I appreciate you inviting me on to share all the info.
So just give the women a little bit story about your background.
Sure. Well, I am a 2-time breast cancer survivor. I was diagnosed in 2018 with stage 1 invasive ductal carcinoma, estrogen receptor positive. And I was 48 at the time, so not too old. And I was, like most people, shocked at the diagnosis. And I, after careful consideration, decided to not go the traditional route. I was offered chemo and radiation and mastectomy. But the reason I chose not to go with those routes at the time was because both of my parents had actually passed away from cancer and had chemo, and I saw their bodies really just take a hit. And I just immediately in my mind thought chemo equals, wasting away and being sick and uncomfortable. And so I just came at it from that kind of personal bias. And after a lot of soul searching, I decided to go a very different route. I went with more of a holistic integrative route. I went to a clinic in Cancun, Mexico called Hope for Cancer.
Oh, and yes. Everybody's heard about the Hope for Cancer clinic. Yes. Good for you.
Thank you. So I spent 3 weeks there getting treatments 6 days a week, vitamin C drips, hyperbaric oxygen chamber, lots and lots of treatments. And I was enthralled by the practices that I was discovering there. And to be honest, I felt healthier with cancer than I did before cancer because of just the changes that I had made in my life as a result of getting the diagnosis. And so I went through that program and went through they had a home protocol that I followed for 3 months after that. And I did end up going back to the clinic for a checkup. They wanted to see how things are going. And unfortunately, my tumor, which was very small, had not changed whatsoever. And I was devastated because I thought, okay, this tumor will have shrunk. And it didn't.
I would have thought it would have shrunk too.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a reasonable thing. And especially since the initial diagnosis was stage 1A and it was a very small tumor. But
yes.
The tip of the scale for you, if I had been consulting with you, is that family history of yours.
Yes, that was
the scale here. We tipped the scale.
For sure. So I ended up just monitoring the tumor at home with ultrasound. And since it wasn't going anywhere, I decided to get a lumpectomy. November of, my dates are all screwy now. November. Anyway, we won't do the dates, but the lumpectomy went perfectly fine. Not even a scar. And I thought, okay, I've done my due and I have made these changes in my life and there's no way it'll ever come back.
Yeah.
So I really firmly believed that in my core that it was not going to come back. And then fast forward to summer of 2021, I had scheduled a surgery to have my breast implants removed because I had breast implants put in when I was 33. So they were at this point 18 years old. And I thought, I really don't want these breast implants in me anymore. I wasn't having breast implant illness symptoms, but I just thought, I could be at some point experiencing these symptoms and there is an expiration date on breast implants.
Okay, hold on, just pause because nobody talks about this.
You're right.
Nobody does. There is an expiration date on breast implants.
There is.
Yeah. And what is
Yeah.
that expiration date, Morgan? What have you discovered?
I think the expiration date is about 10 years
Yeah.
or so. So, I was like way past overdue. And as a prerequisite to getting this explant surgery, my doctor wanted me to have a mammogram. And at that point, I thought, I don't really want to get a mammogram. And the reason I thought that is because the mammogram missed my first tumor because I have dense breasts. However, there was a little voice inside me that said, just go ahead and do the mammogram one last time. And you'll be, you can at least have all the boxes checked. So I go in to get the mammogram thinking nothing's going to go wrong. And the radiologist was like, very stern face. He said, I am fairly certain you have cancer again. And this time it was in the other breast. And it presented as widespread DCIS, which is very visible to a mammogram on the film. It looks just like white, kind of like branches everywhere.
What was your onco score, Morgan?
I didn't have one. I never actually even visited an oncologist because I didn't. In the first diagnosis, I didn't pursue chemo. So I went through this whole thing without any kind of oncologist.
Even the second time, honey, you went throughout? Yeah.
Yes. So at this point, I thought, okay, what are my options here? And basically, it was like you can either do a mastectomy or a lumpectomy. And I thought, okay, I don't want to go playing whack-a-mole every 3 years with this lump now that we've seen it in both breasts. So I went ahead and had a double mastectomy. November of 21. And I decided not to have reconstruction at this point because as much as I did want to have breasts again, I decided that it would be a little bit incongruent with my original decision to have the breast implants removed. Like, why would I get them put in again? So then I explored fat grafting, fat transfer. Exactly. And I don't have enough fat. Okay. So I found someone in Miami who could have potentially done that, but it would required 3 different trips, 3 different surgeries. And I thought it's not worth it. So here I am with a completely flat chest. Mm-hmm. And it's been quite
proud of it. And proud of it.
And I am learning to embrace this new body. It hasn't been easy.
No.
But there are, I don't have to worry about a bra anymore. And,
Or a lot of women are flat and they have a bra with, little things in it, right? So
yes.
It depends what you want to do to feel comfortable.
And I have one of those. And quite frankly, it's a little uncomfortable and the little pads move all around. And I feel like I'm like sticking out in different directions. So I don't wear it. But, there are other options available that, women, can do to make themselves kind of feel more filled out. I just have gotten to the point where I'm just so used to the look of the flat chest that I just kind of go with it.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
This is the beauty of individualizing your care, ladies. There's no one path. Everybody needs to really have a team and be inside of themselves. And if you're in partnership, speak about this with your spouse or partner. I mean, everybody needs to find their own path. And you need to have support teams and oncologists or doctors that are going to be respectful and not scare you or fearmonger you or diminish your decisions. And that's really about what empowerment is about. And now you've become an expert in sleep.
Yes, I have. Well, the backstory on that, there's a couple of different areas. Number one, I had insomnia in my mid-30s, and I was dependent on Ambien for 8 years during that.
And how did this insomnia develop? Did it just one day, all of a sudden you couldn't sleep, or was it gradual and just got really worse?
Great question. Well, I don't want to divulge all the details, but I was having a personal crisis, and it was romantic in nature.
Oh, that'll do it to you.
And
those
it was
romantic. Those romantic
yes,
crises will do it to you.
Quite an interesting experience, but the stress and the anxiety of that developing romantic relationship threw me into an an insomnia episode that I just could not shake. It took on a life of its own. And fortunately, I was able to get off of the sleeping pills. 8 years later, my current husband, who was then my boyfriend 8 years ago, kind of called me out. He said, I'm a little freaked out. When you take that pill, you act like a zombie. You're not yourself. And I thought, oh gosh, it's probably time to stop. So I took myself off of the Ambien.
Not so easy. Okay, just to pause, everybody. Please do not do that yourself. I mean, Morgan did it herself, but this is something that I do. And I can refer you to experts who do that. Just don't go cold turkey off your medications.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's one of the messages I give to people when I'm speaking about this topic is it is not safe to just kind of manage your own withdrawal from a sleeping med or a benzo. You really need to have a healthcare provider, hopefully it's the prescribing provider, but it sometimes isn't, to help you with a titration schedule. I think it's also helpful to have a sleep coach as well in on this
100%.
as a support mechanism and somebody to give you accountability, because you need that kind of just cheerleader, in your corner, saying you can do this, because it is not hard. I mean, in fact, I had actually tried to get off the pills before and it just didn't take. It took my now husband kind of lovingly calling me out to actually get me to do it. But there are just so many negative side effects with sleeping pills that I personally experienced in a profound way. Grogginess. I did not actually feel alert until probably noon the next day. It affected my job because I couldn't perform quickly enough in a very fast-paced PR type of job that I had to produce very fast content. It was not a good scenario. So I'm very
sure.
grateful to be relieved of those medications.
And how long did it take for you to get off of, from when you first started? Was it 3 months or 2 months?
Carol, I really can't remember. It wasn't months. It was more like weeks. And actually, so the second part of my story is that, after I was able to get off the sleeping pills, I slept pretty decently for years on out. And then there was a plot twist, which was March of 2020, right when the pandemic started. I began to have sleeping issues again. And I got very concerned because I did not want to go back to full-blown insomnia. So I bought myself an Oura ring to track my sleep. I started to research sleep, and I was able to get myself back on track with some effort. And I started to share some of the things that I was doing on social media. And I came to find out during this time that a lot of other women in my circle were struggling with sleep during these early stages of the pandemic. And I just got so wrapped up in the whole concept of sleep. And it was one day late in 2020, I said, I am going to be a sleep coach for women, because ever since the breast cancer journey, the first one, I felt very pulled to work in the field of health and making people healthier, but I did not actually know how I would do that. I thought about being like a cancer coach, at one point. But that just didn't really feel authentically like where I was aligned. But when I really just fell in love with sleep, I was like, here we go, we're doing this. So I have been in my sleep coaching practice helping women sleep since summer of 2021. So I'm coming up on 2 years.
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. Really has been.
And wasn't it interesting when you started sharing on social media how prevalent this of an issue all of a sudden? It's I think that sleep disturbance is one of these areas that women just don't talk about. I mean, even before tamoxifen and aromatase inhibitors, I think the stresses of life really impact sleep, and women sort of just bear the burden without sharing, oh, by the way, I'm not sleeping well. And what have you found with your work, Morgan?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you bring that up, because I do feel like women do not talk about their sleep struggles enough. And I saw a documentary on insomnia called The Quest for Sleep. I think it came out a year or so ago. And I learned a lot about the patient experience from that. And what I learned was that a lot of people do not want to share that they're struggling with their sleep because they're
Why
ashamed.
not? They're ashamed?
There's some kind of shame. Now, this
Oh
is not
my
for
goodness.
everybody, but there seems to be some kind of shame for people who have insomnia, like they're broken, which, it's not the case. I don't like to look at insomnia as like your sleep is broken, but you're just having a struggle, and we all inherently are able to sleep. It's just a temporary, disconnect. And women, unfortunately, are like 40% more likely to have insomnia. So we are definitely bearing the brunt of sleep issues. And really, there's, a few reasons why women are more prone to getting sleep issues like insomnia. And one is kind of obvious. It's hormonal, between like puberty and menopause, our hormones can go all over the place. The second reason is because women are more prone to things like anxiety and depression, which are often bidirectional with sleeping problems. And then thirdly, women are absorbing a lot of roles in society. So especially as women hit midlife, okay, so imagine a 40 or 50-year-old woman, she may be at the height of her career. She may be still raising children at home. She also may be caring for an aging parent. So all of these social roles are very stressful and can create that stress, which in turn creates a problem with sleep because of that sleep related anxiety and just, being worried all the time. So there are many different reasons why, women are bearing the brunt, but we definitely are statistically more likely to be struggling with sleep.
100%. I think that when you think about how much women can do and multitask, work out of the home, in most families, the women are responsible for the organization of the home, even if they don't do everything themselves. But a lot of times, not only are women working out of the home, they're also responsible and doing the majority of everything, which means shopping, cooking, if they have children at home, organizing their schedules, which can be a full-time job in itself if you have busy kids with their after-school activities, and trying to take care of themselves. And then if you add an aging parent into that mix, the scale gets just way too much. There is lack of time to sleep, and you're running around all the time. Then you get into bed and you go, okay, now it's time to sleep. It's like, wait, where is this nervous system?
Yes. You described it exactly. Exactly right. Yeah.
So how do women take care of their nervous system? I think that's a very important where we get started.
Yeah. I think that when I'm working with my clients who are dealing with a lot of stress in their life, there are a couple of strategies that I like to suggest to them to reduce that hyperarousal anxiety response when they get into bed. The first thing is, we've all heard of the wind down routine. So, at least an hour before bed would be to, disconnect from social media, to dim the lights, to do something relaxing, for preferably an hour. But if you can't squeeze in an hour, a half hour, just to kind of get things, like sleep is not like a plane, like you can't just land it. You have to kind of like gradually descend. It's not an on-off switch. And then another thing that I like to suggest to women is to take what I call, I don't know if I've invented this term or not, but I use it all the time, mindfulness snacks. So throughout the day, we can encounter a lot of different stressors. And if we don't take time for ourselves during the day, those stressors can pile up and pile up and pile up, so that by the end of the evening, when we're getting ready to go to bed, we're just so keyed up. So the mindfulness snack can look like many different things, but An example would be for somebody to maybe do like a 10-minute breath work or meditation session in the morning, and then do something for 10 minutes in the afternoon. That could be just a walk in silence or breath work or meditation, but really basically what you're doing is you're allowing yourself these pockets of time during the day to decompress, to unbusy your brain so that you're just able to relax a little bit more and handle your stress. Another exercise that I like to have my clients do if they are very worry prone is something called the constructive worry exercise. And so this is usually done in the early evening or late afternoon. You don't want to do it like too close to bed. But what you do is you take a piece of paper and you draw a line down the center of the paper. And on the left-hand side column, you write worries and concerns. And then on the right-hand side column, you write solutions. And you basically spend 15 or 20 minutes doing essentially a brain dump. The worry is this. What's the next step to that problem or worry? You just write a simple solution. If there's not a simple solution, if it's more of a kind of free-floating thing like world peace or whatever, you just write that down, like no solution at this time, and you move on. And you can fold that piece of paper up, put it on your bedside table. And then if you wake up perhaps in the middle of the night with worries and your monkey mind's kind of going all crazy, you can look, just kind of acknowledge the paper, like I've done my worrying and I'll resume my worrying tomorrow at my designated time period. So those are some ways that I like to encourage my clients to kind
I
of
like that idea.
handle that. Yeah.
I like both of those ideas. I think these 10-minute breaks where you just walk away, and when the weather is nice, even for me, I like 10 minutes in the garden, snipping plants in my little pots in my garden, and I'll take breaks during the day, 10-minute breaks. I never thought about it as mindfulness snacks. I like this concept, but I just know that when the weather's nice, I'll go outside and snip and tend my garden for 10 minutes, and I'll come back inside and I'll feel really refreshed.
Yes.
And I do power walks and, and I think that managing stress in little pockets like that, so when you get into bed, you're not like this,
Yes.
is very helpful. And I think the message that you're giving, and that I also feel in what I work with my community, is that we need to do something, and it's more than a pill. And there's lots of people and lots of options out there that you can choose from, and you just need to find the people to work with. And if one option doesn't work, okay, that's not your thing. Let's find another option. But it's to never give up on finding natural solutions.
Yes, there are plenty of them out there. And I mean, not to say that sleeping pills or medications should never be used, but there really is a case for them being used more judiciously. For example, if you are experiencing a death in the family, you lost your job, a loved one is diagnosed with something, to have a sleeping pill to get you through a couple of really rough weeks. I see the purpose in that.
I actually have natural products that will do the same job. So
yeah. And I mean, I think those are great. And I would definitely go with the natural products first, but I'm speaking from the kind of stance of somebody who goes to their family doctor and they're just like, help me.
Correct.
The family doctor, unfortunately does not have more than a couple of hours of sleep science education under their belt.
And they only have a couple of minutes to spend with you. So of course, out comes a prescription pad, right?
Yes, exactly. And what the doctors are failing to really understand for the most part, and I've talked with some doctors who really do understand how sleeping pills should be prescribed. But when you look at the package insert on a sleeping pill, it does say not to be used more than a couple of weeks. But the doctors are writing the prescriptions for PR, ongoing, refill, like they would a birth control pill, you can just keep using it, for years and months. So, they have not been properly educated in many
100%.
facets.
Right. Well, I think this is really wonderful, Morgan. And the other thing I want to say from a functional perspective is you need to really also be looking at your caffeine intake. Because I had somebody who came to see me for sleep, and I always ask what people are eating, and I also ask about coffee, and they said, well, I start with 5 cups in the morning.
Wow.
Because I didn't sleep well and I need energy, and then around 3 o'clock I have another 5 cups. So they're taking. I'm going, oh my goodness. So they're taking like drug level caffeine, and I go, okay, well, I think we found the reasons for your sleep problems and your anxiety. And she was having cardiology issues that, arrhythmias from her. So I said, well, we need to detox you. You can't go from 10 cups of coffee a day to 0. It's like going through drug. We had to gradually stop, which took about 6 weeks. So, it was an interesting experience. So for those women who are listening, and if you're eating or drinking more than 1 or 2 cups of coffee, first of all, I do not recommend drinking coffee first thing in the morning because it mobilizes gluconeogenesis, which means putting sugar into your bloodstream, and then your cancer cells go, oh, great, gas for my gas tank. I'm off and running. So if you must have coffee, eat food first and drink 1 cup. Make sure it's organic at around 11 in the morning, and do not put sugar in it. If you have to have a creamer in it, use coconut cream, not dairy. That's my coffee recommendation. It's actually quite delicious, which is what I have right here.
Yum. Cheers.
It is really good. So, but I think what Morgan is sharing and her area of expertise is very valuable, and there isn't enough emphasis put on sleep. And if you're having sleep problems, especially with the stress of a breast cancer diagnosis and then being put through speedy menopause with those hormonal treatments, please reach out to Morgan, and I'm going to put her URL right here so you can find her. Okay. And you work with women all over the country.
All over the world.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
The beauty of the internet, right?
I know, the beauty of a Zoom call. We can serve women wherever they live.
Yeah. And from the ease of your home.
Absolutely.
And when women reach out to you through your website, Morgan, you have a contact me option there on your
Yes, there is a tab called free call, I believe. So I offer like a 20-minute sleep clarity call to chat about your issues. I also have launched a free mini course that you can find at the top of my website to kind of give you some of the basics for a sleep reset. So, I'd be happy to chat with anybody if they are struggling with their sleep. More than happy to connect.
Okay, wonderful. Morgan, thank you so much. Ladies, it's been really wonderful to hang out with you today. This is Carol Lourie signing off for now with my dear friend and colleague, Morgan Adams, who is the sleep coach. And I encourage you to reach out to her if you're having problems. And Morgan, just hang out for a second and we'll talk after we're done with our live video. Have a lovely day, everyone. And it's Carol Lourie signing off for now. It's been a pleasure to hang out with you. Bye for now.